Hey guys, I apologize for not getting the video out sooner. I have been working on the car. It's been a little bit here and there, so I haven't really got the camera out and the microphone and everything. And I got a new tripod that I'm trying to figure out how to use. But I wanted to give you an update. As you can see, the front fenders are off, the grill's off. I did cut out the front, or not cut out, but it's hot riveted in the front engine mount. Got everything cleaned up, ground down, ready for the front end, the independent front suspension to be put on. If you remember, I ordered the independent front suspension from Scott's Hotrods at Good Guys here in Columbus. It took about 6 weeks. Got that in. That's what this front cross member is. They just as advertised, it seems to be laser cut. When you give a measurement, you're going to get it exactly, because I barely had to do anything to this for it to slide right into place and be ready to weld. So if you do one of these, which I recommend definitely using them or looking into them if you're looking at an IFS or IRS or a full chassis for any of your projects. Really take good measurements, because they're going to give you exactly what you give them. So if you remember, when I was doing the rear end, I had a screw in this front, a sheet metal screw that I had directly in the center with the string line to square up the rear end and make sure I could measure from all the way up here and triangulate back to make sure everything was square. So I'm redoing the same thing for the front, and I have 4 spots with cross members, which you can't see back here, that are directly in the middle of the chassis, that I'm using to triangulate this and check the measurement in 3 different places. You can see I have a laser here. I have the string line I was using, so I've measured this thing 175,000 different ways, because Scott's makes it abundantly clear that it has to be perfect, or as close to perfect as you can get it, so that all your ride quality is good. You can adjust it to get the proper alignment. As you can imagine, if this thing is out of whack by a couple degrees, who knows whether you can adjust that alignment out. And chances are the suspension's not going to work necessarily correct. You're going to bump steer and whatnot. So this piece I'll show you. This cross member, my chassis is at ride height, ride height that I think it is. I'm gonna double check that, and I'll explain that later. The cross member needs to be level front to back and side to side. So sorry, my neighbor is talking to me. Let me see what else to tell you. So the chassis is straight, but I did notice it's about 2 to 2.5 degrees, sort of is cockeyed. Front passenger or front driver and rear passenger is about 2.5 degrees. So you'll notice I have the floor jack over here, 2.5 degrees over 133-inch wheelbase is minimal. If I just push on that, that's 2.5 degrees. So trying to make it as perfect as possible, and because Scott's Hot Rods in the instructions, they make it pretty abundantly clear that the more you measure, the better your measurements are, and the more precise it is, the better quality product you'll have. And quite frankly, I'm not a suspension guru, and they are, so I'm just going to follow what they say. So I'll give you some close-ups of this front end, and show you over here all the rest of the kit. They did a really good job packaging it. I'm excited to see what it looks like on the car. I think it's going to be nice. Obviously you're not going to see most of it once it's all assembled, but I'm excited to see how it assembles, because it seems like. So if we zoom in here, you'll see The welding's obviously impeccable. Everybody wonders, everybody gets excited about good welds. I mean, it's no surprise that they're chassis builders and their welding is very good. It's welded inside and out, just really well made. We'll have a rack and pinion rear mount, so you won't see it on the front of the car. Not that well, I guess you would see it if it hung down there, but did a pretty good job with that. If you look back here, you can see the silver spots back there. Those are the screws. I got 4 of them. Further, it goes further and further back. I think I'm measuring 110 inches at the max, so I think it'll be sufficient enough to make it square. So you see 4-piston Willwood brakes, custom made A-arms, lower A-arms. We have coilovers that are the right length for this. Willwood rotors. And I don't. These are. I think these are. I don't know if these are drop spindles or not. Willwood. Obviously, brake caliper holders, all machined. Front or upper A arms. You can see everything's packaged really well. All clevis sets that are machined with Scots on them. So, brake lines. It's a very good package. They have a real thorough instructions. I mean, hopefully, well, not hopefully, if somebody is doing one of these, they can use probably my video to help them with their instructions. So, and then today at a garage sale, I got this for $20. So, not a bad score. It's a small arbor press, but I'm sure it'll come in handy at some point. So, yeah, I will show you some work on this. Hopefully what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack this thing pretty securely, and then I'm going to assemble everything, get the wheels on, get it on the ground, double check ride height, make sure I don't need, I mean at this point it's sort of a moot point. I can't really change much, because as you can see down here, move this out of the way. You can see down here, I can't really lower this much because I'm going to get into here. What I had to do is I trimmed this literally about a blade on the grinder, because quite frankly my measurements weren't precise. Had I given them precise measurements, I wouldn't have had to trim it at all. So that's what I'm saying. They're very good at what they do. So you can see my laser level down there where I'm getting tenths of degrees, so that way sort of how I'm doing it. I highly recommend doing that laser, and then the lines, the plumb bobs. Check it 100 different ways. You can see I have a tape down here that I use for plumb bobs to square everything up, to double check. So just very important to make sure that if you're not using a chassis table like I'm not, measure it 300 times before you do any welding. So we're going to measure here for the final time before we weld, just to check to make sure that we're still square. Checking my level front to back, side to side, just to make sure. I tapped it there. It didn't really do anything, but just to make sure we're where we need to be before we start welding this. So I'll go ahead and turn the welder on, check the gas twice because I didn't think I put it on the first time. And then what I'm doing is just welding in 5 different places, about a half-inch weld, half-inch bead, just to make sure that it's held enough that I can hold the weight of the tires and fenders, but also if I need to cut it off, I can. This little piece I'm putting in here is because my measurements weren't correct. So they ask you if the frame has a taper front to back, and it really it does, but it was very hard to measure with the fenders on. That piece is I think maybe an 1/8 inch piece. Actually, no, I think it's maybe a 16th. So just a filler in there, so I didn't have to just gap weld the whole thing. Um, Same thing on both sides. Just tack these in. And I'll show you what if you're watching this, you probably know how to put A arms on and whatnot. But just going through the instructions, front to back. I've done this before on just factory cars. What I did find interesting is that in the instructions, they obviously tell you to use anti-seize, and because I'm just mocking this up, I figured, I don't use anti-seize. Well, I put the bolt in there, and I realized that they use anti-seize during the construction. So um, I went ahead and put anti-seize in there, helped lubricate the threads a little bit. Um, Pardon my use of a crescent wrench. Went and got the right socket, um, trying to eliminate having to get up and down too much. So everything I'm doing here is just, snug. It's not really, it's just overhand tight. You'll notice when I'm start putting this together that it it really sort of just falls together. There's nothing, they're building this on a jig, and they took it apart with these exact parts, not the exact bolts, but the exact parts. So obviously should go back together fairly easy, and it does. So you notice when I put the front on, I'm getting to, or not the front, but the upper on. The front clevis drops right in, but the rear clevis, I have to loosen the rear clevis up a little bit for the bolt to drop right in. That was the only thing, and I obviously did that on the other side once I got done with this one. Shock mounts up just fine. Obviously the spindle, just top and bottom, I just hand tightened everything, and then we'll get to showing you what I'm doing here. I'm just oiling the bearings. I know obviously they're going to be greased eventually. I just was taught by an old timer that you just never want to have bearings without any lubrication. So I just put a little bit of machine oil on those just to make sure I don't ruin or I don't have any issues with them. Once again, just snugged it up like you would normally on this, and then putting the Willwood caliper on, finger tight, all that stuff. Didn't put pads on it. I just wanted to, get this on here for measuring the clearance of the wheels I'll have made. The tires and wheels I'm using now are just temporary, as I mentioned in the previous video. It's an overview of the driver's side assembled. Very tidy, simple package that they put together. Um, Very happy with the product. Once again, I didn't. They're not paying me for this or anything. I'm just sharing my opinion of some research I've done, who I ended up using for this project. I thought it'd be useful for some of you guys out there building street rods. Thanks.